And now, a word with Ernie Wiseman. He's talking with Marjorie Biggins.
We were at a place called Kendall. We called there about midday on Saturday and pulled up outside the local pub. And a chap came out and he says, Christ, he says, what's this contraptions? And Charlie, he says, you're interested in books? He said, what, books? Reading books? Yeah. And he sings out, hey, Pat. And Pat turned out to be the local policeman, see? He says, hey, some blokes here with books. And everybody come out of the pub, and that afternoon we made £2.
Story of some of the best years of his life, when during the Depression he and his mate Charlie Lindemann travelled the back country around Kempsey, Taree, Wingham, Port Macquarie with Australia's most unusual bookmobile, the Swagmobile.
Well, actually, the Depression started around about the 1928-29 period, and I'd just finished, I was serving my time in Ganninans, and when the Depression came out, unless you was a boss's son, you just was given a week's notice, and then you was out on your own, you see. And nobody anticipated it was going to go on for the period of time that it went on, see. Anyway, I had saved up the great sum of 20-odd pounds, you know, and I thought, oh, gee, I'll have a wonderful time with 20-odd pounds. And then Dad said to me, well, you want to be a bit careful because of the fact that it mightn't spin out. It might go a bit longer. He knew more about life's experience than I did, see. Then I had an auntie in Sydney, and she said they'd built a convent down there, and she was in this order. And she said, there's a bit of work for you if you'd like to come down here and do some landscaping, you know, a bit of labouring work. So I went down there, and while I was down there, I also got a bit of work with the orchards out at Eastwood, picking and packing peaches, and one of the men I worked for was an Italian from up a place called Babinda in Queensland, and he was satisfied with my performance, you know, working. So he said, if you come up to Babinda in the winter months, he said, I'll give you a job on the cane, putting out cane, see. So I came home and I decided I'd do that, you see, and I'd never been on the road before. I said to Mum and Dad, I'm going to go off to Queensland. Well, it so happened one of the men who my dad knew well was a chap by the name of Lindemann. And he, at that particular time, was managing the Hotel Toronto for a chap by the name of Bacon. He had managed the hotel, the Westminster that was opposite the the post office. But Charlie's marriage folded up. And he come up to Dad and he said, could you put me up for a week, Dad, before, so as, you know, get matters straightened out. And Dad put him in my room. And he heard that I was thinking about going up to Queensland, and he said, can I come with you? So I said, okay, Dad, because I knew Mum would be satisfied. So we made up. I said I was leaving on the following Saturday. We went down to Dinny O'Brien's, bought a tent, and decided that Charlie was well known in Newcastle, see, and he didn't want to be seen getting out with a swag in his back. So we got the train at Honeysuckle, and we went to Maitland, put our swags in the luggage part of it, in the guard's van, went to Maitland, and we started off from Maitland. Charlie, we walked through Maitland, and Charlie gets up near the Belmore Bridge, and there's an undertaker there by the name of Fry that knew Charlie, you know, like from years ago, see, and he said, what, on the track, Charlie, see? Anyway, we went off up, and we carried our swags up. We had a lot of adventures, you know, different things, met different swaggies. We got to Kempsey, we got a job at Kempsey, see? And it was a bugbear making the tent up every night, you know, and all that sort of thing. And when we were out in this job, the place called Columbatti Rail, we worked for a fellow, he was a butcher, Angie Sutherland from Kempsey, and we had to grub and sucker, see? And he gave us an old hut to live in. And we decided then and there, we put our heads together, with this pitching a tent every night was no good, you know. We'd make something that we could get along, and we made up our minds we'd travel around Australia, see. So when the job cut out, we went back into Kempsey, and we got permission to stay in this place, belong to cafe people. So we set to and we started making this thing. We bought a plane which has cost us 3 and 6pence, and which I still have today, a hammer and a saw, and hard work. Went up to the timber yards, and we told the chap what we wanted, and he says, look, he said, there's a lot of second-hand stuff there. He said, it'll be all right for what you wanted. He says, just take your pick, and it cost us about less than £1 to get the whole lot of it, and we made these things, you see. And as they were getting made, people would see them through the shop window and wonder what they were. But with no wheels on them, they just looked like the wings of a biplane, and we let them on, see, that they're going to build a biplane. Well, it was something like a rickshaw. We just got in it. We had a little bit of a belt over our shoulder. That was to pull it along, but if you got it on the balance, even though it weighed up £300 when it was, if you got it on the balance, it was really good, except when you got to around places like Cranbrook, where it's very hilly, and wanted to pull now and get behind and push it, just like giving a car a start. But that was only the last 20 feet or 30 feet to the top of the hill. See, most of the time we could handle them ourselves, you see. Going down the hill, well, he had a bit of a brace there so you could put the brakes on, use your feet. See, Charlie wore boots, but I didn't. And you just dig your toes in, you see, and hold it like that. And if it looked like getting away from me, well, you just drop the front of it down and the legs dug in, and that's what. But that very seldom happens. Walking pace, see. But if the wind was in front of you, well, we just simply walked a bit and got, had a spell, bit of a yarn.
Well, it's difficult to describe the Swagmobiles, but imagine a wooden construction, 6 feet long, 3 feet wide, with 2 motorbike wheels at one end, the handles at the other, a permanent galvanised roof over the lot, and at the back, a narrow row of shelves behind a door which swung down to make a counter. It carried their swag, their pots and pans, their supplies in old treacle tins, was a bed at night. Camped with the shafts put end onto each other and a board across them, it became their dining room, and then it helped them to earn their living.
Next door was a Mrs. Quinn, and she used to had a corner shop, and the Aboriginals from the camp across the Macleay River, Burnt Bridge, or Burnt Ridge they call it, I think, they used to do their shopping there, see, and she got us to do some work for her in the shop, like put some shelves up, and she never had much money, so Charlie said to me one night, he said, yeah, that's a bloody good idea, he said. He said, she's got books there, and the Aboriginals come along and exchange books, you see. He said, we might get some books off her and go around, and we could make our living exchanging and selling books, see. So that's where the idea was born. And everybody was intrigued, and here and there, she went on all the little settlements around about the place, Telegraph Point and Blackman's Punt and Port Macquarie was not the place it is today. It was just a sort of a village set up then. And you get into a place like that, and people were so intrigued with the turnout, and to think that we were doing this, that they were carried away with it, see. And every time they came to a place, look, you'd swap books or something like that, or yarn. We didn't care. Those days they were giving you at 5 and 9pence, the 6 shillings a week to live on if it was on the dole, see. So we figured out if we could exchange these books for a penny for the paperbacks and at 3pence for the hardbacks, you see, we'd make more than 5 shillings a week. And most of the people were, down on their uppers like we were, and didn't have the money to buy books. Well, they give you 2 books for one, or they give you a dozen each, and we'd give them half a dozen books, you see, depending upon the stock of books. But we were finding we were getting that many books that we couldn't handle it, you see. But you'd meet that many swagmans and say, hey, come on, dig, a dozen books for you. And they thought it was heaven, to get all these books to read. And there was all types of books. We had really good authors, Rider Haggard, and the women, they used to go for Ethel Dell and Ruby M. Ayres, and there was Zane Grey's and Buffalo Bills to no end, and Edgar Wallace, and all kinds of books that, Oliver Goldsmith's, The Vicar of Wakewell, we had quite a few copies of that. It was a very popular book. But all the good authors of that period, see? And Charles Dickens, he was another one. And the result was that everywhere we went was just like meeting old friends, you see. And people would say, oh, stop here tonight, have tea, put your Swagmobiles alongside the fence there, Well, when the milk in the morning, go up and get some milk, carry on for the day. But as I say, after a while, and people would talk about it, and we were so slow moving, you know, the news of the thing was way ahead of us. You see, and people would be waiting for the two blokes with books because there were no libraries. The only place they could get books was the Bush Book Club. No town libraries or anything, see. And some places you get inundated. We got the Taree, and the RSL at Taree heard about us, you know, and come up and see us. And we went up there, and they loaded us up with a lot of cast-off books that they didn't want, you see. And when we got to Wingham, we did Wingham. It did take us about a week to do a place like Wingham, see, because it was a fair-sized village or country town. And you'd go along. We'd start in the morning, and we always yarning and talking to people. That was the best part of it in the long run, because you met so many people of different walks in life, and you got it's actually the best education I ever had, actually. And you got at ease with people, see, and people got at ease, and people would tell you about their life experiences and about their forefathers, and the history that you could gather if you wanted to was tremendous. Well, another place, and we got to Wingham, and I'll never forget Wingham, because the kids come out, when we got to Wingham, the kids were just coming out of school, and they followed us up to where we were going to camp on the river, just like it reminded me of the Pied Piper of Hamelin, you know, with everybody tracing after him, see. And of course the kids spread the news about these things in town, you see. Oh, Dad, we've seen these things, you know. And Mum would talk, and they'd be waiting for, see. Another thing I remember about Wingham, Dr. Murray Stapes' book on birth control had come out, and everybody was giving us Dr. Murray, well, not everybody, but lots of people were discarding Dr. Murray Stapes' book, you see. And we had copies upon copies of Dr. Murray Stapes' book. And, well, we never ever did to 6 or 7 miles. Just depends whether you're going to farms or you're going along the main road or a place like that, and there was only a farm, say, every mile or so, see. But if you got into a town, you might do one street. It took us about nearly a month to do Taree. See? By the time we left Taree, everybody knew about us, because when we got to Taree, somebody said, "There's a show on, and why don't you put your contraption in the most original turnout?" See. So Charlie, my mate, he said, "All right, I'll give it a go," and he put it in there, and we got second prize, you see. But the write-up in the paper next day said, the most, I never forgot it. In fact, I got a copy of it there, the way they put it. Positively the most original and yet the most unostentatious outfit was the Swagmobile, pulled by Charlie Lindemann, see? So, anyhow, we got second prize, but a lot of publicity out of it, see? which was what we wanted. Oh, we were very, very learning as we went along, you know. But I think if anybody today went around, say, with a good van and went from farm to farm, exchanged books like that, you have to go out back a bit. You not only get the experience of all these people who live in the bush, who are the best people in the country, no question about it. And you can sit by them and talk. You can got a congenial way of life. You've got no worries in the world. You can make all the coin you want. You can have a depot in Newcastle, send your good books down there and have them classified. And you get more books than you ever want, you know. And people still like it, despite the fact there's TV and that's, people still like books.
Ernie Wiseman's Swagmobile, and he was talking with Marjorie Biggins in Newcastle.